to discuss this such important topic, so which is protein diversification. And so I will have a little start and discussing a little bit of what why this such topic is important for us. So in EIT Food, to expedite transformative change, we have collaborative identified areas of important areas where we can uniquely drive impact through our 3 missions, which I'm sure you are now familiar with because we have been discussing previously, and also we have been displaying all over the event, which are the healthier life through food, a net zero food system, and reducing risk for a fair and resilient food system. In our comprehensive analysis, we have been identifying 3 pivotal challenges that have been emerged and in which have been a potential to contribute significantly to the realization of these 3 missions. And actually, the 3 of them, one of the 3 of them is protein diversification, along with regenerative agriculture and packaging labeling and transparency. So these priority challenges underpin our commitment to delivering the impactful change needed for the healthier planet and people. And this is why in EIT Food, we believe the protein diversification in particular plays a central role in these missions. And this is why we have also created a protein diversification think tank, which actually Carrie will showcase today, the policy briefing that we have just launched. So the structure of this breakout session will consist in two parts. So the first part will be 25 minutes of the Food for Healthy Planet and Protein, the Protein Diversification Case breakout session, in which we will have clear statements from each of the speakers. So each of the speakers will go through an opening statement. And then following for the rest 45 minutes or 40 minutes now for an open conversation. Well, we will have questions to all the speakers, and then we would like to invite all the people from the audience to please ask your questions through the Slido. So if you have access to Slido, please make sure you ask your questions there so that when we go into the open discussion, then we can hand out these questions to the speakers. So also, I would like to present you to James Daisy. I don't know if you're here, James? No. Yes. So if someone would like to have an interview of the think tank members, which we have also present in this event, so please reach out to James. So we will be very happy to schedule some interviews for that. So I will start presenting the great speakers we have today. So the first one is Carrie Tromsom. She is the current president of EIT Food Protein Diversification Think Tank and the Open Innovation Manager at Danone. And as I mentioned before, she will be going through the policy briefing that has just been launched by the Protein Diversification, EIT Food Protein Diversification Think Tank. So she will be sharing some findings and recommendations. Then we have Anna Kurkina. She's a Master of Science student at Baruch University, and she will present the research from Dr. Reinhardt and PhD candidate Alessandro Monaco on perception on novel food regulation. And we have Matilde Codocci, and she's a legal consultant, and she will go through a global perspective on the trends in 2023. We have Cohen Dillon, head of unit of DG Agri, and he will share with us some statements about the EU protein strategy. And lastly but not least, we have Jorge Molina Villanueva, policy officer at DG RTD, and he will go through the Food 2030 policy framework and RIV, Regional Innovation Valley. So I will now like to hand over to Carrie so that she can start with her statement.
Thank you, Lorena. As Lorena said, I'm here on behalf of the Protein Diversification Think Tank, initiated by EIT Food, a think tank that convenes stakeholders and partners of the EIT Food ecosystem, ranging from academics, research and technology organizations, companies, cooperatives, and NGOs. We enable structured dialogue in order to identify challenges and hurdles to innovation in the area of protein diversification, and propose recommendations for how to create that future path. Why are we doing that? Because in order to create our future food with a healthy planet and healthy people, we need to take some fundamental changes. We need to reevaluate and change both the way we produce food and the way we consume food. We need to move away from the strong dependence on the resource-intensive animal-based protein production to a shift with less of that, more extensive and regenerative agricultural practices, more of plant-based protein for food, but also alternative sources that range from protein-rich crops as whole foods, protein crops as ingredients, cultivated produce ranging from cultivated meat, but also mycoprotein, fungal and bacterial-based proteins, to precision fermentation of animal and plant proteins, without forgetting insect-based and algae-based foods. It's a vast area. And I'm very honored and proud to announce at this moment the launch of our policy briefing paper entitled Accelerating Protein Diversification for Europe. It's launched right now today. Thank you. You can reach it by scanning this QR code, and also later navigating through EIT Food websites. This is a joint work by think tank members, resulting from structured interviews with stakeholders throughout the food system. It looks at the state of the art today. It looks at barriers and hurdles to innovation and comes with a clear set of recommendations to policymakers. Many of the contributors and think tank members are right here in the room with me, especially on the first row here. So you will recognize some of those faces. And as James said, if anybody wants to speak to them, if the press wants to interview us, we are here for that. I'll highlight 7 key messages from the paper because I can't present it all. A remarkable figure, actually investing in protein diversification is very efficient. A study has shown that investing in protein diversification brings the highest greenhouse gas reduction per euro invested compared to any other industries. And while doing it, we do not only secure our future food, but we secure our planet. We secure a sustainable and resilient planet with possibilities for food production for the future. But the time to act is now. This is the turning point. And Europe can sit on the fence and follow. Europe can block. Europe can and should be a leader in this transition. We have enormous potential. There are enormous amounts of technologies, innovations. They're just waiting to be leveraged and scaled up. But to succeed, it's not that easy. The food system is a very, very complex system. There are so many interactions between parts of what we used to call the value chain, which are multiple value circles, multiple systems. We can't overcome the challenges if we don't have a systems approach to it. That's why we as a think tank have really looked at it from a systems perspective, and we're continuing to map that system. And all actors in the system need to be involved, from farmers through the production chain to consumers, and changing consumer habits as well, as we also saw earlier today. Moving my cheat sheet. But in order to succeed, we not only need to transform the food system, we need to transform the policy framework that enables it. And this goes all the way from touching areas such as research funding, critical, regulations, the Common Agricultural Policy, the CAP, but also consumer awareness and fair competition. And we believe that the future EU-level policies, starting with the EU protein strategy, which is currently in the works. Am I moving? That will play a key role. The new CAP will be instrumental in promoting the change. And also, as we'll hear more about later on, the novel food regulation might need a refresh on how to implement it, how to ease the way for applicants through the process. We can't do this without starting with the farmers. They're pivotal. They play a fundamental role today and in the future. They will change practices, but whether it's reducing livestock production, diversifying crops, going from feed to food crops, it's also about providing the feedstock for the novel technologies, the fermenting and cultivating technologies. Farmers will still be at the source of our food production. And they need to be involved from the start. They need to be part of dialogues and also the transition planning. But they also will need financial help. So on the financial side, we need investment in R&D for agriculture, in de-risking investments. We also see a great need for investment in the infrastructure, bringing it from crop through the process of ingredients through foods. There's a huge needs on the fermentation area and other areas for those novel technologies. And public funding has the ability to fund things with a long-term perspective, which is crucial here. They can fund with a much more strategic long-term thinking than what private investors typically do, which is why it's so important to act there. And last but not least, education and attracting new talents. The food system is a huge employer, but sometimes struggling to retain the talents. And in the changing food systems, we need lifelong learning experiences. And we also need systems approach. We shouldn't teach people just a part of the puzzle. Everybody needs to get some understanding of the interactions between the different parts of the system. And with that, I also wanted to add that as a think tank, we will continue our work. We will continue engaging with experts and stakeholders. We will continue identifying challenges, and we will co-create roadmaps for the transition with policymakers and with the ecosystem. And we invite all of you here to engage with us. That's what we want to do. We engage broadly. So if you're interested, reach out to me or any of the members. We really want and need your input to do this transition together. Thank you.
Thank you, Kari. Definitely there is a lot to do, but I'm sure that if we join forces, we are going to be able to make this transition faster. So just before handing over to Anna Kurkrina, I would just like to inform you, which I forgot to mention before, that for your Q&A questions, please go to Slido and select breakout 1. Okay, so that then we can redirect those questions to me. So now I would like to ask Anna Kurkina to please to go ahead. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Anna Churkina, and I'm a part of research group as the chair of food law at Bayreuth University in Germany. And we have been working particularly on food innovation. And today I'm presenting results of the survey that reflects on authorization procedure under the novel food regulation and its impact on alternative protein ecosystem. So this research has given voice to experts, shedding light on their experience, concerns and suggestions for improvement. Firstly, we had several interviews with stakeholders, and then we developed a survey based on that. We had around 90 respondents, and they were participants were from various backgrounds, mainly startups, established companies, academia, and they were primarily based in Europe by significant presence in Germany. So at least half of the respondents were involved in authorization procedure, but we actually analyzed the differences between different groups, those who were involved and who were not involved, also in groups like businesses and academia. And sometimes we could see slight differences, but the overall picture is pretty much the same. So I will present overall data. I would like to focus mainly on two aspects: main challenges and potential solutions. Now, let's start from challenges. As you could see from the slide, difficulties to communicate with EFSA and uncertainty regarding novel status of the product were not really a concern for stakeholders. However, more than a half of participants found the collection of required data and the costs of the procedure to be challenging or very challenging. And that was perceived as a significant obstacle in the procedure. The survey also highlights, result highlighted that the length of the procedure is a major concern for the majority of stakeholders, and they consider that very challenging. And especially we could see that for small companies and startups. On the right part of the slide, you could see distribution of answers to the question if you are afraid of excessive political interference in the authorization procedure. And we could see that around 70% respondents do have this fear. Now let us look to a pie chart below on the right side that shows perception of the data protection clause. Here we could see homogeneous distribution, so we gave a possibility to comment on that. And respondents highlighted some issues with the data protection clause, particularly its duration, not reflecting the length and cost of the procedure. And it was also criticized for potentially duplicating resources, disadvantaging small companies, and slowing down innovation adoption, which could reduce environmental impact. So turning to possible solution, respondents had the opportunity to suggest mechanisms to foster innovation under the novel food framework, and they suggested pre-submission dialogue with EFSA, more agile and regularly updated guidelines, encouraging of group applications, data sharing and collaboration with other jurisdictions. Some of these proposals were already among the tools that we asked respondents to evaluate, and most of them would welcome the opportunity to discuss their application with EFSA before submission, and also they would welcome the opportunity to organize non-commercial tastings. The possibility to place a novel food on the market before receiving the final authorization with appropriate warning signs and limitations were also considered valuable to improve innovation by half of the respondents, and so its creation the subsidies under their common agriculture policy. The introduction of mandatory licensing mechanism for novel food is covered by data protection, has received a positive evaluation only by a small group of respondents. It is also important to note that more than half of stakeholders believe that potential sustainability benefits should be considered in the authorization procedure. So to sum it up, while the novel food regulation is perceived by stakeholders long and costly, it remains essential for ensuring food safety and increasing legitimacy, and especially that promotes transparency and knowledge creation, which is important for a sustainable food system. However, the insights from stakeholders' opinion can guide us for improving the authorization procedure and fostering innovation in the alternative protein ecosystems. So especially organization of non-commercial testings, which is quite easy to implement, and small improvements like that could be really helpful. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Anna, for providing these insights about the novel food regulation. I hope we can make some advancements there as well. So Matilde, now I would like to welcome you on stage to bring your statements about the trends in 2023. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. My slide is going to be very minimalist. So my name is Mathilde Doshi. I'm a food law consultant and I specialize in alternative protein regulation / food innovation. And I deal with clients that want to make sure that their food are compliant with local jurisdictions. So mainly do the European region, so the EU, UK, and Switzerland. Also the Middle East, the Gulf region, APAC, Singapore, and New Zealand and Australia, and also North America. And here map out the countries or region that are the most active in food innovation / alternative proteins. And as you can guess, protein diversification is high in countries' agenda. We have like several example at the global level. Earlier this year, we had the FAO release a report on the safety of cell-based products. And also it was acknowledged by the EU Commissioner for Agriculture that we need to rethink, for instance, our dependence on imported feed. And differences between jurisdiction are mainly based on societal, economic, and cultural consideration, because food is a global topic, but it's like mostly regulated at the local level. For instance, you can pick a food that is like widely eaten in one place, but will be very unlikely to be eaten in another one. Like for instance, a European example would be snails. I happen to be French, and I've had snails like I think 5 times in my life, and most of the time it was abroad. And for me, it was not a big psychological barrier because I was told that anyway, French people sometimes they eat snails. And also differences between places can be explained by the strategy adopted by the jurisdiction. I don't know if many of you may be aware, but Singapore is like very much loved by the startups because it's a very fast-paced country to launch your alternative products. Can be done like most likely in less than a year, whereas in Europe it's most likely 3 years, just because, like, for instance, from the moment you ask question to authorities, in my experience, they can reply to you like within 3 business days, and you have one person dedicated to your file. And I also wanted to emphasize that the grass is not always greener on the other side of the fence, but it's greener where you water it. Like another jurisdiction that startups love to consider is the US, because you do have a novel food authorization system similar to the EU, but not really. First of all, it's a optional system. It's a notification system. It's the GRAS system, generally recognized as safe. It's not only for food, but also for other ingredients. And it means that as a startup, for instance, for plant-based food, if you want to check that your plant-based protein is can be commercialized, it's up to you to decide to involve the FDA. And even if the FDA will disagree with you, you can still put the product on the market. So in that case, I'm very happy to be based in Europe because I know that the due diligence process is certainly cumbersome, but it's like the main priority is the safety of the consumers. And in terms of collaboration, like I've seen a trend popping up in the past years. It's the establishment of trade organizations, most of the time at the regional level, but now you have also trade association at the global level. Like for instance, Precision Fermentation Association that is based in the US but have members all over the place, and they want to establish a fair level playing field with the animal-based industry, and also to drive policy and regulatory changes because these products can be seen as so innovative that sometimes they don't even have standards or guidelines to help company to apply for regulatory approval. And collaboration can also be seen by the establishment of CMOs, which is contract manufacturing organizations. So basically, a company will develop in-house the products, but the production will be done by an external partner. And for the EU, if you want to retain like innovation, we have to put in place support initiatives, such as Anna said, implementing pre-submission advice when it comes to novel foods, and also working on having a standardization of parameters required for novel foods, such as microprotein, cell-based, precision fermentation derived ingredients. Because when you have to demonstrate the safety of the products, it's not a good way to just, if you do like cell-based dairy, you wouldn't assess the safety of the products based on the parameter that you use for dairy. It's not, I know that's tempting to do this, but the cell-based dairy is not a standardized product, but you have some parameters, like for instance, pasteurization of cell-based food might not be the way to render the food safer, actually can do the opposite. And yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mathilde. Now I would like to hand over to Cohen Dylan on the EU protein strategy. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And it's my pleasure to be here today. Let me try to organize this. Indeed, I'll use my first couple of minutes to introduce a little bit the work we're doing in the Commission on this famous EU protein. And then, of course, happy to go into the discussion with you on specific aspects. I'll be very brief on this one. So this is known to every one of you. So why do we have plant protein on the agenda? And there's a lot of angles going into that. And I think all those angles should also then be represented in the answer or the solution that we provide. I will not run through all these angles here because you're all familiar with that. Otherwise, you would not be in this session. But it just shows you that there is a resilience aspect, there's a sustainability aspect, there's a safety aspect, there's nitrogen fertilizers that come in, etc. So there is a lot going on. So then when we got the mandate in several Commission communications to work on a review of the protein policy, we felt that indeed we should go further than the 2018 report, which was focused rather limited, I would say, on the import dependency and on the high protein crops. So that was the angle. And I think what we're trying to do now, and I'll try to, yes. So now we want to have a new look at things. And the green elements is what we kind of add to the 2018 report. So first of all, indeed, we still want to better understand what can we do on the EU side with protein crops. It's still on the agenda. I mean, DG Agri, we still are on this line that there is an interest to improve our production of protein crops. But we don't want to look only at the economic side of things, but I think in the new policy setting, the new policy narrative that we are, the Green Deal, Farm to Fork, all these things were not around in 2018. We also have to have more focus on the environmental benefit if we look at the protein crops. What can they bring? Some of them are nitrogen fixating, they have a role in rotation, they have plenty of roles there. So that's an element we want to add. And then, although it's quite cryptic here, again, if we look at the supply of protein crops, we want to very much look at the competitiveness. And what we mean here is the supply chain. We cannot just count on the farmer to move from one day to the other into, I don't know, whatever legume he wants to produce. He has to be able to sell it. He has to be able to make a business case out of that. Then we want to focus much more on demand as well, because you have supply, you can do things on supply, but you have to look at demand. And if you look at demand, there's the two sides. There's feed demand, where I think that we have to have another look on what do we do with our livestock? What is the role of livestock? What type of production systems use most of these proteins? What type of production systems have less dependency on some of the imports? And I think that's a question that we should look at and then decide, okay, if we want to move on this protein diversification, what can we do there? And I'm not saying it necessarily means that we have to, because that's what often the conclusion, that then we have to say livestock is bad. I think that's not our proposition, but we have to see how can we also improve the animal protein and how can they be part of this change. And then, of course, we also want to look at the food demand. We already spoke a lot about that today, but the consumer has a crucial role. Again, coming back to the supply chain, if you want to have a supply chain, if you want to get all the actors in, you need to have the consumer. You have to look at demand and understand what is there, the barrier to move, as some of our communications already say, to a diet which has more plant-based protein, because that should be the objective. And then you see the third pillar here, which is here it says new alternative sources of protein. You can find other names, complementary proteins, but here we indeed wanted to have a closer look at what is being developed. What do we know about some of these technologies that are mentioned so often? What do we know about fermentation? Traditional, but potentially precision fermentation. What do we know about new technologies in the lab? And what do we need to know more before we can really have an opinion on them? So I think that's something that we want to work on. So it's quite a bit. That's also why we are taking our time. So I just wanted to, that's my last slide, give you a bit of guidance on what we have done and what we want to do. So indeed, we got a real, let's say, good to go sign at the beginning of the year. And then we had different steps. We already had a first stakeholder workshop with a high number of stakeholders, also member states, to discuss our fact finding, because we did a big exercise to look for facts for all these things, just data. What do we know? What do we not know? And that we try to discuss with the stakeholders. Then we have worked hard to distill this to see, okay, what are the messages we want to look at? What is the narrative? What are the things we want to move on? And so these we want to present, or at least some of them, in a workshop which is upcoming. It's now planned for the 16th of November, where again, we will discuss with stakeholders and member states on some of our maybe ideas, some things we've come across to see, okay, do we all share that feeling? Is maybe we do not share the feeling, but how should we move on? So that's a key part of our process. And then we would like to have a piece of work presented, adopted in Q1 2024. I cannot tell you now, will it be January, will it be March? This depends on a lot of things, but that's the work line. And I highlight here just 3 things that are very important that we also have available, and I may come back to some of these during the discussion. First is that we have done a dedicated study to look at the feed. What can we improve in feeding strategies, in what type of production systems, etc. So to hope to have some good ideas there. Then, of course, we have worked closely with the Parliament, and I'm sure you're all familiar with their own initiative report that they adopted last week. And then, and I want to make it explicit because some of the colleagues are here in the room, and also I may refer to it, is that we had the pleasure of having some junior professionals, as they're called, to work with us on the alternative proteins. And that has given us some very nice insight, not only on the work that they have done, but it was also a pleasure to get in some new minds, fresh views. They're younger than the rest of us. They have other views. They have other feeling with what is a societal debate. And some of their research has also been very interesting, and we hope to take that on board as well. So that's it from my side for my introductory points. Thank you.
Thank you, Koen. Actually, yes, there is a lot to do, and we are really looking forward to see this piece of EU strategy, protein strategy coming along in 2024. So now I would like to hand over to Jorge Molina on the Food 2030 policy framework and brief.
Yes, can you hear me? Yeah. So thank you. Good morning. My name is Jorge Molina. I work for DGRTD, Unit of Bioeconomy and Food Systems, and the Research and Innovation as a policy officer. And then I would like to thank EIT Food for the invitation to speak on this conference and on this session. We were asked to provide one slide with graphics and images. So I tried to put a lot of images that are, let's say, self-explanatory. As you know, DG Research and Innovation mission is to develop the R&I policy, and we do this through the framework program mainly. And our unit Bioeconomy and Food Systems, it's helping to this transition to a healthy planet. Let me start then on the left. I will talk about Food 2030. I put the name of this slide, R&I for Green and Resilient Food Systems. I could have chosen lot of titles, but I wanted to make this title making it in the same way as our conference. So I will as the name of our conference that we will be organizing the forum 5th of December. So you are invited, and I will speak a little bit more about that. So it will be today's conference on that. I will explain the Food 2030 policy framework. That is a policy framework. It's our, let's say, vision to support the transition to food systems transformation. This initiative started in 2016, okay, and it's connected to the Farm to Fork strategy. And Food 2030 calls for a systemic approach. Where policy and projects are tackling 4 overarching priorities. One of them is nutrition and healthy diets. Another one is climate smart sustainable food systems. Another one is circular and resource efficient food systems. And the fourth one is the communities, food systems, innovation, and the empowerment of communities. The important here, maybe some of you know already, is that this policy framework has associated 10, but in December we will present 11 pathways for actions. We have been working with these pathways for action during the last years. So there is a pathway for action associated to each one of the main challenges that we discover when this policy framework started. So let me mention some of them. One of the pathways, you have the complete list here on the middle. So one of them is data and digital transformation, urban food systems, food waste, microbiome, food safety, governance, zero pollution food systems, and of course alternative proteins for a dietary shift. So this is something looks like this document, okay? So you can find these documents online, and this is the version of 2020. The good thing is that we will be presenting a new version that we work on them during this year with experts, with the stakeholders during the conference on the 4th and 5th of December. So a new version of the 11 pathways for actions that they present policy context. They introduce which are the barriers to advance on these areas, microbiome, proteins, and also RNI needs that we co-create with different stakeholders and internal services. So at the end, these pathways for action are, let's say, strategic documents, but they are, of course, a source of inspiration for future topics and the work programs. So let me mention here that you see in the middle the pathways for action, the list. You see the 4 Food 2030 priorities: nutrition, climate, circularity, and communities. And you see some dot plus associated of each pathway with each one of these priorities. This is the concept of co-benefits. Okay, of course we cannot work in isolation, in silos. This is a systemic thinking. This is a cross-cutting approach. So all the different pathways are interconnected, and these dots are, let's say, showing the connections and the relations that these pathways have among themselves and also among them, and also contributing to the impacts of the 4 priorities. So that's important. So till now, if we talk a little bit about funding, Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe has funded in this Food 2030 associated projects around 700 million during a lot of years, so across 117 projects. And probably you already registered for that, but this is the announcement that you're invited to participate and to register for the conference that we will have on the 4th and 5th of December. It will be a great conference tackling of course, these issues. Let me now talk about a little bit about the NEIA, the New European Innovation Agenda. That was a communication launched in July 2022. So yeah, more than 1 year ago. This is a flagship. This is a flagship of the European Commission, this New European Innovation Agenda, launched by DGRTD. And what we are aiming at is to position Europe on a new way of deep tech technologies and innovation, and also startups. So if we talk, and the EIT Food is very much connected, and I know that you are doing a lot of things with the startups and deep tech as well. So if we are going to connect, or we are going to talk about how can we advance in the field of alternative proteins, we have to have in mind innovation, of course, and we have to have in mind the entrepreneurship that is coming from startups. So regional innovation valleys is a framework, it's an initiative, and also it was and it will be a call for proposals for regions to participate in this area. So. So in this case, as I mentioned, the keywords are innovation, deep tech, and regional innovation ecosystems. Here, the key aspects are how regional innovation ecosystems are connecting in different regions among them to create innovation. So, for example, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, or new materials are examples of deep tech areas that we need to replace fossil-based materials, or for sustainable growth, of course. We publish an expression of interest. That's the image on the right. On the right, these colorful dots on the right. We publish a call for expression of interest, where regions, regional authorities, in collaboration with industries, in collaboration with the universities, RTOs, and other clusters, etc., presenting their interest to become a regional innovation valley. And these are the examples of the different dots, colored dots of those expression of interest. At the end, this mapping was done during the summer, before the summer, and ended in September. And it was like a matchmaking exercise. So people, regions, and actors working in either in food security, so including also alternative proteins, circular economy, health, cybersecurity, and other areas, could make a match and then submit a proposal to the call that was closed very recently in October. That call was under the Pillar 3, the European Innovation Ecosystems Program, and also under the I3 instrument that is managed by DG Regio. So we got around 57 proposals to become regional innovation valleys in these areas of food security, circular economy, health, etc. And yeah, we are very happy, and these proposals are under evaluation. And the slide here that you see is regional innovation valleys. I mean, the picture for bioeconomy and food systems. This is a concept note that is public, and that we develop in the GRTD as a thematic use case of these regional innovation valleys, more general concept that are associated to the NEIA, to the New European Innovation Agenda. But I will talk a little bit more later about this concept note. So thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. I will start. I'm seeing that I'm receiving questions through Slido, so thank you for those that have posted the questions. So I will start with one general one, and then I'm going to go through those, because just to mention that, okay, protein diversification, we see that is gaining global attention, and it's been supported as well by the FAO report and the EU commissioners because of the concern as what we have been discussing about the feed dependency, the food security, the greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, and also, but last but not least, also providing sufficient, nutritious, safe, accessible, and affordable food for everyone. So as we know that we need to provide and accelerate these protein diversification efforts, how, from your perspective, since there are so many things that we need to do, what are your recommendations on what are the main things that we should be focusing on to have these acceleration efforts? And if you have any best practices examples from 2023. So I don't know if someone would like to start to have their opinion. Maybe Kari, you want from the paper, or? So it's working.
That was a very long question.
So yes, the question is really, what are your recommendations on how we can accelerate the protein diversification efforts? Because from your presentation statements, of course, there are many aspects that we need to cover, and which would be your recommendation, or which are the things that we need to focus on to accelerate this transition.
As we saw earlier, there are several things that need to happen together. One is an enabling policy framework. It's funding for the transition. It is taking it from a systems approach, not trying to act at bits and pieces, but seeing connections, because it's a transformation. But, if I were to pick one here today with this audience, an enabling policy framework, from the policy of funding of research to investments to the regulations, to supporting the agricultural transition with a new CAP to incentivize sustainable food production rather than incentivize yield per hectare, as we did in the past. I think that is going to be a key thing to succeed.
Thank you. I will link to what you mentioned as well of the research and innovation fundings. And actually, I had a question with regards to how we can manage to increase, and actually maybe this is for you, Jorge, to increase the research and innovation funding for alternative proteins, which we have seen also from the paper that only 1% of EU RNI funding is allocated to protein diversification. What are your recommendations, Jorge, on these regards?
Yes, well, it's always time to invest more, of course. But yeah, we have been investing in different goals and topics around proteins. In fact, if I'm not sure. Yeah, so this is just some examples, and I will reply to your question with more a future approach. So these are examples of calls during the Rise in Europe 2021-24 on alternative proteins and on this field. So you have some calls and the names of some of the projects, and also you have now an open call for 24 that will close the deadlines for submitting proposals in February, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, in the context, as I mentioned, Food 2030 is there. Food 2030 has different pathways for action. One of them is alternative proteins for a dietary shift. So that means that in that sense, and as I mentioned at the beginning, we are using these pathways for action as a source of inspiration for creating the future work programs. So in that sense, yeah, we will be eventually investing in that, of course.
Great to hear. Thank you. I will go through, I don't know if someone wants to build on this, but anyway, I will go to, yes.
I'm happy to chip in, sorry, on the first question. But my answer is probably very logical to the audience we have today, because I've heard it throughout the first presentations. I hear it now. And I think what is really essential here, beyond the complex thinking, we have to look at the food system, etc. I'm not ignoring that. But what is really, I think, essential here is the concept of co-creation, working together instead of polarizing, competing, etc. And in that regard, I would like to refer to one of the, I think, most interesting work that again my colleagues in the back have done. Is they have done a survey with all actors in the chain. I'm not going to say the survey is representative and all that. It's not as scientific as Anna's, but at least it gives a feeling. We got answers and we look at them. And this is not in this audience, and that's why I think we should send out this message. But if we look at the surveys on what are barriers, what are opportunities for alternative proteins, alternative to animal-based, then you see at what let's say the agricultural producers answer. They are very much focused on plants. They want to work on plants. They want to work on protein crops. The arguments are sustainability. The arguments are improvement of the farm, closer to nature, etc. Then you move up on the chain. Then you come to the food processors. And what you see there, and again, I'm not saying it's representative, but you see them, they talk about sustainability, because they need that for lots of reasons, including their reporting, etc. They talk about sustainability, but they talk also about brand image. So then other attributes come in. It's quality, it's safety, it's consistency of the product. It's so a whole set of different attributes than what the farmers will tell you. Then you move to the retail and the food service, and all of a sudden the sustainability, I'm exaggerating, disappears. Of course, they're also, but they talk about convenience, nutrition, health, when they look at alternatives. So you see that the supply chain, and I stressed that in my introduction, we need a supply chain for these products. But if everybody expects different things, if everybody wants different things and sees the value in different things, it's very difficult to establish this supply chain. So that's why I think this co-creation, talking and making sure that everybody understands instead of polarizing is what we need to really make this transition.
Thank you. That's a very great point. Actually, yes, along the supply chain, there are different types of interests. So this is important, very important. I don't know, someone else would like to build on, or I move to the next questions? No. So I have a question for Cohen. So how do you also succeed to integrate the foreseeable impact of climate change and temperatures in your study and projections?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question that doesn't only apply to what we do on the protein, but I think it applies to the whole CAP and how do we look at farming in particular then here. Because of course we know that the production situation in Europe will change. There's plenty of scientific studies saying that some regions will move some production regions will move to others, that we will have to really think in the next 10, 15 years about how we produce things. And we have to prepare for that. And that's a challenge, because it's very easy to look at your current situation and then try to change is always difficult. So you look at your current situation and you look at incremental things. Okay, this year if I'm a barley producer in Spain, this year it was not very good for my barley, but let's try to grow it on a different plot. Or so you always look for incremental changes. Well, we need to have this system change, and we have to see, okay, where do we need to be in 10 years? Not only on the mitigation, because I think mitigation is very much discussed. We have a lot of policies on mitigation, on how much greenhouse gas we have to reduce, how much carbon we have to store, because also their farming and the forestry sector have an important role to play. But we're not so much focusing on the longer term adaptation. And I think that's something that we have to take care of as well. We have to make sure that how we produce in the future is sustainable. And it may be that the practices that therefore we need in the future are not the ones that provide an answer to the short-term challenges you face. And I think that's something that we have to do. So I spoke a lot, but I have no concrete answer. It's something that we have to have in the back of our mind. Again, I think it means that we have to have a collective approach to that. Because again, one single farmer, if I come back to that, if he changes, it may not be enough. We probably need a landscape approach. We probably have to have cooperation to make this change, to again create supply chain somewhere, create demand, create supply. So I think we come back to the same principle there. But very concretely, I don't know.
May I please jump on that?
Yes.
Could we link the two? Could we make the link with the two pieces of your answer, which is we can collectively co-create the solutions that we need for the 10 years to come? And it's very probably it's the way to reunite farmers with food producers. Because as you say, there are still silos, and what we are trying to do here is to break silos. And we can only break silos if we together, in a system thinking approach, project ourselves together with farmers, with producers into 10 years, and what are the solutions that we need for the 10 years to come.
I would agree.
Okay, we're going to organize that. Anyone would like to build on this discussion? Kari?
Yeah, I was about to say that the beauty of it is that although the food system is responsible for between 24 and 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions, it's almost if we see it as one industry, it's the biggest single industry responsible. So it's part of the problem, but it's part of the solution. And it's the best solution. It's the industry that has most potential to capture greenhouse gases and create a planet, a nature for the future. So, we need that positivism in as well. And by doing systemic changes instead of incremental and risk mitigation, as you talked to Colin, there's such a huge potential in that transformation that we can not only decelerate the climate change, but we could halt it, and we could even reverse it if we do the right things.
I was just going to say that I think we're all on the same page. So we know it's complex, it's dynamic, it's all stakeholders, cross-sector collaboration, transdisciplinarity. But the system solutions, the systems innovations we talk about, it doesn't come itself. We need to find the right way of working. So that's lacking. We need to increase our capacity in each organization, in the industry, in the policy, even universities, academia. We have to have this tools, approaches, methodologies to understand this complexity. I think we need to work on that. And it's not an easy task either. I'm very glad that EIT Food takes this seriously. So we have educational programs, and then we're working on that end. But there comes the importance of the pilots, like cases to showcases. If we can identify, especially with the regional valleys that you mentioned, bioeconomy, connection to the food systems, specifically with the protein diversification, if we can identify a couple of pilots and then bringing the stakeholders on a concrete case, problem-based learning, case-based learning, and that's the way of building this capacity, tackling with this complexity and the dynamic systems we're talking about. I just wanted to say that.
Peter wants to say something just here.
I come back to Koen, one point of view. I would like to put a bit of positivity here in. Also, if you look to the position paper, there are two best cases from retailers. And because I just quote, I'm accelerating, but if you move along the value chain, which is a simplistic approach, sustainability somewhere is lost in between. It seems there are changes, and I'm looking for the really big beasts. Yeah. So I would say, and coming back to the co-creational part of it, we have seen that in the position paper and in structured interviews as well as a demand, creating mutual understanding and trust. Yeah. Maybe that could be an angle to have a good, not a small tool, but a big tool to accelerate protein diversification. And I think that could be worth to explore further in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 round tables. That's not an easy thing, but I think it can be done.
Jorge.
Yeah, one example. I'm from the Netherlands and became a shareholder. I think is not the right word, but a landholder in a cooperative. And there's 30,000 people participating now. And we buy land, right, from farmers that are often grassland, and then commission farmers to ecologically farm what is needed, have our own processing as well. So and that's breaking barriers, right? That's really including the consumer that reads a lot and wants to eat healthily, and make them a co-actor, right? It's costing you money, but you're now involved in the decision making. There are platforms where you can vote on what land to buy, et cetera, et cetera. And that's growing quite rapidly, actually.
Can I steal this microphone to say something? Oh, no. Jorge, go.
No, I was picking up some ideas of collaboration, demonstration places. So this is very much connected with the regional innovation valleys for in this thematic specific application of food security or food systems and bioeconomy and food systems. I showed my second slide was a list of goals and projects. So most of them are more RIAs, research and innovation actions, so lower TRLs, 3 to 5 approximately. So also some of them innovation actions, so around 5, 6, etc. But in this case, this collaboration among regions is more, it's place-based, it's regional, is among different regions in Europe, and also in higher TRLs. So the idea is to bring solutions to the market. So if there are regions in Europe where you have a local innovation ecosystem called whatever, dealing with alternative proteins or innovation in that field, so this is a good option for upcoming calls next year in these regional innovation valleys.
Just a short statement, because I like a lot what I heard today, this idea of pilots, lighthouses. I hear it here, because I think it's not always the narrative I get when I go around and talk about this. Very often, especially in the academic side, so now I have to be careful that I'm not, but there's this notion, okay, it's a system thing. We have to change the system. So therefore we need a systemic change. It has to happen all at once. And then you ask, but how? And then it's silence. And we need these operational solutions. We need to have small elements. We need to have things to learn from, to move. The illusion that we will change everything at once, we should take that away. Sorry.
That's a very valid point. We cannot change everything at once. And actually making a pilot, having a pilot that you can showcase that things can be done in a different way, it's quite important. And maybe this co-creation that Kevin, it's a good starting point as well to break those silos that we are currently working on. I would like to maybe talk about, like, since we are talking about pilots, maybe it would be a good question to Jorge to go through and explain a little bit more about the thematic case on regional innovation valleys for bioeconomy and food system. Maybe you can just briefly talk about that.
Well, I can add a few words on that. I explained a little bit already. In fact, there was a launch event 2 weeks ago in Bulgaria, in Plovdiv, where this concept, this thematic particular case focus on bioeconomy and food system was presented. So trying to create a critical mass of stakeholders and actors around this field to promote this the creation of this in principle 100 different types, and there are also hydrogen regional innovation valleys focused to hydrogen and other areas. But we wanted to in our unit to focus on bioeconomy and food systems. At the end, this is part of the puzzle, and then we would like to contribute to the sovereignty of Europe on that. And just to add that, for example, we have this concept note includes 3 main objectives of this regional innovation values for bioeconomy and food systems: scale and speed up solutions in available and emerging technologies, so closest to the markets for entrepreneurs, startups as well. Increase interconnectedness through the exchanges, networking, etc. And we also co-create this document with the member states, with the EBPF, the European Bioeconomy Forum, where the member states are represented. So we want also to promote the dialogue with member states, with regions on future funding for this type of regional innovation valleys under ongoing or future NEIA calls. So we hope that this could be also important to get this transition to more sustainable food systems.
Thank you. I'm cautious on time, and unfortunately we have only 7 minutes to go. And there are a lot of questions. I won't be able to go through all of them. But okay, I'm gonna try to squeeze as much as I can through these 7 minutes. I have a question on the protein strategy to Cohen, about if will the scope of the strategy also focus on the other traditional plant-based products, like on other like oil seeds, and not just on proteins? And also if this report will be available for everyone.
Yes, of course. Yes, it will be available for everyone. It's going to be let's see what format it has, but it will be a public document, a commission document. And yes, of course, we will focus on all sources of protein. And I opened my paper because I had some key numbers there. But in our analysis that we have been doing, we always talk about soybeans if it comes down to that. We talk about, but actually 42% of the crude proteins that we're using for our feed system come from roughage and grass. And we forget about that. So maybe we should also look there. What can we do on grass? What can we do on roughage? And then comes oil seeds, and then comes cereals. Because also on the roughage and grass, you have less of these issues of the competition between food and feed, etc. And so, yes, I think we have to have a very holistic view at things, look at all crude proteins we use, how we transform them, and how we consume them. And only then we can find or take a step forward. I wanted to say find a solution, but that may be hard, but take a step forward.
Thank you. I would like to make a mention as well on a very important topic, that is the novel food regulation, and have a question regards that. And if EU considering to adopt some of the administrative approaches that Singapore has in novel food regulation to help European novel food industry to accelerate this transition to new products, because of course if this process is slow, so this is putting us in a different position. So there is anything that you would be able to answer at this point, or not? No. Maybe you can.
Yeah. So what from what I heard from the industry, you can see it in many like statement paper, to increase the number of civil servants in certain agency, because you have too many requests and not enough people. And then Singapore is a different system. Like the country is more or less operating like a company in itself. And also it's easier to manage because it's only one country. You do have something unlike the EU in Southeast Asia, which is ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. But it's very much a corporation organization a la carte. So if you have like a novel food product that is authorized in Singapore, maybe Malaysia will be open to have it authorized under a mutual recognition process, but it's not guaranteed. So we can see the Singaporean system as maybe being a little bit more flexible, but at the end of the day, the EU is like 500 million consumer in terms of size, and in Singapore it's only 6 million. So, but we can always learn from best practices abroad, and that's something we can discuss. But yeah, I don't really know the position of the EU institution, but has been suggested many times by the industry.
Thank you. Yes, definitely there are ways to improve, and probably this will be taken into consideration. Have a question. Let's see if, well, we have now 3 minutes to go. So I would ask you, I don't know if you're going to be all around later on. So for those questions that haven't been answered, maybe you can just interact later on. And since we have 3 minutes and I have been asked to be very sharp on the timing, so would you like to finish this conversation, this discussion with a very one statement from each of you? I would like you to just close this session with one little statement. You can start, Jorge. Thank you.
Change must start from research, from knowledge, and from research and innovation.
I would like to say that as a lot of people have fear of excessive political interference, I think that happens because we could hear a lot of statements from political parties on different level of seriousness that alternative proteins are being used to destroy cultural heritage and these kind of things. So I think that people, especially stakeholders from business and startups, they have this fear because they don't know what might happen when the final decision is being made by the committee with member states, even if when EFSA says yes. So I think it's also important to attack this fear of alternative proteins in general.
Thank you.
I'd like to say we're all in this together. Let's co-create on local ecosystems, regional valleys, and expand to Europe and beyond. Together is the way we're going to win.
Thank you, Kari.
We have to look at best practices, but also be mindful that it's not because one thing is working in one jurisdiction that it will work in another one if you just copy paste the regulation. You have to take into account local consideration.
I was thinking about a good one-liner, but I didn't get there. So no, I think from my side, I think we have established it's a food system that change that we need. There's lots of corners of this. The example I gave on roughage, some people do not think about it. And if we make incremental steps on all these little parts in the food system, we can get there. And that's what we should try to do, all on our own terrain.
Great, thank you. I would like to thank all the speakers for the great statements and roundtable discussion. And thank you all of you for being here. Thank you.